Okay, hi again, and thank you all for coming. It is the last, but not least, Agora Talk for TIFF 66. Woohoo! I'm very happy. Thank you all for coming. I will not bother you with the formalities much. I just want to thank our dear panelists and thank the Municipality of Thessaloniki for letting us have this beautiful space. With no further ado, please, Thodori, if you want to introduce the panelists and enjoy the talk. Thank you all so much.
Sure. Thank you, Thanos. And thank you to everyone for inviting us here. I'm Thodoris Georgakopoulos, and this is a panel on smarter sets, technology in the service of a greener industry. Now, I'm a writer and a journalist, not an expert on any of this. I will be just the guy asking questions here, and I'll be asking some of the questions. The rest is up to you. At some point in the discussion, we will open the floor for questions. You can ask the speakers anything you want. Well, not anything you want on our subject of the day. Our speakers are Mr. Bassam Al-Assad. He is, among other things, a producer, a cultural organizer, climate storytelling and production consultant, and the founder of Greener Screen, a consultancy that supports the film industry in our wider region in becoming carbon neutral. Emma Doxiadi is a writer, director, and producer, the founder of Everybody's, a climate-driven production company, and the co-founder of Film SOS, Greece's first sustainability initiative for the audiovisual sector. And George Hadzivasiliou is a writer and a journalist, also a director and writer of educational documentaries, and the author of a recent book on the philosophy of AI, which he just gave to me, and I naively put it in my bag. I should have had it here and show it to you. Anyway, maybe I'll show it to you later. Now, thank you all three for being with us tonight. This talk explores how contemporary technologies, I'm reading off the description, particularly AI, can advance ecological sustainability in film production. This gave me pause. I thought that AI was a mortal threat to the industry, that it is stealing jobs while consuming insane amounts of energy, which is the opposite of sustainability in film production. So, Mr. Al-Assad, let's begin with some definitions. First of all, help me basically understand, what does sustainable film production mean? Can you give us some specific examples?
Thank you for having me. Well, green production is, I usually ramble a lot and I wouldn't stop talking about it, but I wrote exactly three lines to say it in a very eloquent way. Green film production equal making the film in a smallest environmental impact without impacting creative or technical qualities. Okay. So we're still film industry, but we aim to reduce our carbon footprint, our ways of, while we're doing filming. And on average, films like the ones that you would watch here in the festival would emit somewhere between 70 to 500 tons of carbon footprint. And it's large. It would equivalent to the average of lighting 10 houses in Europe.
Okay.
For 1 year.
One film to shoot.
For 1 year.
Yeah. For 1 year. Wow.
Yeah. So we're very impactful industry. So I really loved when Thanos sent me the title of this work. We usually say greener sets or more sustainable sets, but it should be a smarter sets because now with the idea of technology and all of that, it can be a smarter set. So there are three main impacting things to do the film. First, the energy consumption. Second is the transportation, and third is the elements or the material that we use. So the idea of doing green production is to plan how we can reduce the consumption of each one of them. Okay. This is in a nutshell.
Perfect. So what are some of the tools that are available to filmmakers and production companies to reduce the carbon footprint in each one of these three categories?
Well, for example, switching to LED lights rather than the classical HMIs that they usually use in film sets. This can be something that reduces consumption of energy in a big way. In energy consumption, especially when filming off-grid or in places that you don't have electricity from the government, we usually use diesel generators. So there are so many alternatives from biofuel to for example, now we're working with a technology company in Jordan. We're trying to regenerate, repurpose Tesla batteries from cars that are disregarded and going to landfills to reuse them as batteries or power banks on set to reduce reusing the diesel generators. And the third thing is to think how we can transport people and equipment to our locations, planning on how we film in each location, using electric or hybrid vehicles to move them, and how we can reduce using them. In food, how to reduce the amount of meat that we eat on set, and how to have fun day, like we call it. We don't call it vegan day; we call it fun day, so people don't do revolutions on us. And thrifting for outfits, repurposing sets and material. So there are so many things that we can borrow from other industries or even our daily life, as someone is environmentally conscious. It's not complicated, but if it's planned properly, it can be done.
Okay, I assume it can be expensive as well. Next round of questions, I'll ask you about incentives and how can...
Not at all. Actually, you save money if you do it properly. If you're planning to do it, maybe some transformation needs a little bit advanced, like money, but in the end, you will end up saving some money.
Okay, we'll talk about more technology solutions and that can make this transition more cost-effective in the second round. But first, I would like to bring the issue in the Greek paradigm, in Greece. Mr. Xiadi, is film production in Greece utilizing this type of solutions to become greener?
Firstly, thank you for having me, and really nice to be here with all of you. And thank you for the festival for continuing to integrate sustainability and green production and climate storytelling into its agenda. It's really doing a lot for it. I think I can only speak from what I see in terms of being a filmmaker myself, but also working with others in other productions as a sustainability coordinator, that there is no specific legislation in place at the moment that indicates that this is something that there's intent, of course, for things to be done from a more kind of unified front, but at the moment we see a lot of action in individual productions and filmmakers and producers who try to adopt various means to lower the consumption and waste of a production, for the most part. And in that regard, the great thing is that because there is no one standardized, unified way to make productions lower their footprint, their environmental and ecological footprint, there are infinite options to select from in terms of what other countries have integrated as their kind of mandatory sustainability criteria upon entering production, or resources that are available from more straightforwardly like ecological or climate-specific industries.
Should there be incentive from the state towards that end for greener film production here in Greece and elsewhere in Europe as well?
Yeah, I think it's a very complex topic, because there's definitely always an intent, I think, to be doing more on this front in every industry, and then when it boils down to logistics, there's things that take more time than might be expected, but I think there's definitely more and more conversations from all fronts in the audiovisual field in Greece that indicate that people are starting to understand the urgency of making, to use the word that is, in the title, like smarter choices in how films are put together, and this idea of like how, not like what stories we choose to tell, but also how we're choosing to tell them, is something that definitely is like being amplified. And I think, you know, when it comes to like government-driven incentives, it's a matter of making it easier for productions to actually adopt a more holistic approach and a more like definitive way of integrating practices that require some planning and some person to be actually in charge of this. But also, I think what is urgently like growing in demand in the field is people asking for like training and the right way to do this. And the good news is that perhaps there is no right way, because, you know, one can argue. It feels like, from my experience, people are looking for like an absolute way to make a green film or to make a production green, and they're speaking they don't add the greener, they talk about the green. And I think a very big part of what I feel like, if I may say so, Bassam, you also are doing in your work, but also many other people internationally and in Greece are trying to do, is really add these two last letters, more, or say like more sustainable rather than sustainable, because it is a step that matters to realize that it's an impossibility to really reduce fully, obviously, the impact of a production or an event. But the intent, you know, to keep working on it is what matters. So yeah, I think of a long way of answering this question. I think people need incentives in order for this to grow into something that is not just personal conscience driven, but there's like a more practical side to making it happen.
Moving on to Mr. Hadjivassiliou, I would like to bring you in the discussion from a more philosophical standpoint. These are the practical issues on filmmaking, but there is a philosophical aspect in the question as well, because there is a contradiction, I think, inherent in the discussion here. We haven't talked about AI tools specifically yet, but they seem to be an inherent threat to the creative process of filmmaking. And how can we talk about the ethical and philosophical aspects of using AI tools to solve some of the problems that AI tools actually help create?
First of all, I want to thank as well Thessaloniki Film Festival for the invitation to be part of this panel discussion. I mainly represent the field of philosophy of AI as a writer and a PhD, a doctor in that field. So I would like to sketch a broader perspective on the emergence of AI and the present and the future that it incubates. I think we're going to understand the term of creativity in a total different way in some decades from now, because up until now we think that creativity or art is only something that it's an exclusive privilege of human beings. But currently, right now, we can already see forms of AI that can create videos, can create literature, can create poetry. And already we have seen that these stand inseparable many times compared to human artworks. And the thing that we need to keep in our minds is that right now we are only experiencing the very beginning of artificial intelligence. We haven't seen anything yet. Within the coming years and the coming decades, AI is going to multiply the current possibilities that it has. And this is a two-way street. I mean, on the one hand, this means that it's going to multiply the capabilities we have to create more art or to improve our well-being in a global manner, not only from artistic perspectives, but also from scientific and other technologies. But on the other hand, AI will also multiply the dangers, the risks, the political, existential, ethical risks, one of which certainly is climate crisis, because artificial intelligence on the one hand is going to escalate furthermore the climate crisis, but on the other hand, at the same time, it is also creating new types of solutions on how we can deal or how we can at least limit the risks of the the escalation of climate crisis. So I think it's a two-way street, and we can actually, in terms of art, we can refer to many, many kind of examples that already AI surpasses the intellectual work of art of human beings. For example, there have been a couple of competitions. One of those is about photography. It was a global competition. And an AI work actually won the competition. People didn't know, the judges didn't know that it was an AI work, and it actually received the first prize. Afterwards, it was revealed, of course, that this was a piece of work made by AI. And the same happened, and this occurred as even more strange to me at a literature competition in China. And this happened 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago. It won the first prize in this competition for a book that it had been written through AI. And now we need to make a projection in the future and think, because right now, this kind of generative artificial intelligence is just 3 years old. Huh? So if it was a kind of people, if it was a Homo sapiens, it would be about this size. Now, if we make a projection in the future and we think that this kid is going to become 18 years old or 30 years old or 50 years old, which means it's going to be much more powerful, much more capable of doing things, the pieces of art, of science, of all job market actually, it's going to be deeply shattered by the emergence of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence has a kind of historical size that is going to bring a transformation in a global manner in everything that we do know right now. And and I'm going to make a closing statement with this thing. This is always the case with technology. It's not the first time that we're going to experience such a historical transformation. For example, it was digital technology that brought us to the digital age. It was the industrial technology that brought us to the industrial age. The Enlightenment actually was created in a way out of the printing invention, out of the technology of printing, because we don't have all this kind of information and knowledge that it is now it was in the hands of everybody. So the modern escalation of technology is AI, and it comes from a very big ground of technological, historical development. But AI is different from any other technologies because it has other ontological characteristics. It can create its own ideas, take its own initiatives, and create its own forms of art as well.
As it creates its own forms of art, can it also be used as one of the tools available to make sets greener? And can you give us some specific examples, Bassam?
Well, yeah, definitely. I've never thought about it before this. How I use AI on a daily basis.
How?
As a producer, maybe I do my deep researches now. Do it. So many applications we submit for fundings. We need to reduce the numbers of words. You need to expand
the boring things. You use it
exactly.
For the boring
And it managed to cut my the work that would take so much time to less time and focus on other stuff. So I use AI. I'm an avid user and I enjoy using. So I started searching how we can utilize AI for greener sets. So it can help in scheduling for filming. So you can make sure that your plans that this is the shortest way to, for example, go to the set, or this is the fastest, this is the logical way of selecting equipments that fits this scene. So it would help the people. It will not take jobs from people. It will be another tool helping them to make things in a smarter way. So it can help in virtual scouting, for example. So it would reduce also the carbon footprint of moving. It can help in scheduling, logistics, and script breakdown. It can help in now they're integrating AI with sensors. So if you're filming in a studio, you can program the sensors when it's idle. It will turn everything off, and So it will reduce electricity. It will help in the waste management of how things would go, and if there are also sensors, and you can know when to switch things, to replace things. So it is a great tool that will make things easier, faster, and more logical. But at the end, there is the other side of training this LLM, or large language model, to be and to understand to be industry specific, which is, I was researching how much energy or how much carbon footprint would need, and it's around 200 to 500 tons of carbon footprint, which is one film. But you will have a system that will serve so many films and so many places. So it is logical, but also there are some AI companies that are doing renewables, using heat pumps rather than water to cool servers. So it's always about the conscious decision with whom you will work and how you will use it.
So I want to ask both of you also, Emma, to talk to us about specific tools that you've used during your productions. And another question I want to ask both of you to answer, you, Emma, first, is how do you measure and evaluate how greener a set can get using those tools? What are the tools that you use to measure the impact of those measures that you take to make them greener?
Yeah. Which question do we do first?
You go first with the tools,
okay.
the digital tools that you use.
So, as you said, it is a field that is in its infancy, even though it's growing extremely fast. But the way that we integrate technology in the work that we do when it comes to putting together a sense of how to reduce waste and consumption in a film shoot involves a lot of planning in terms of taking this is something that is like very manual as well, but you can imagine how it is also applied to like a more technology-driven model, but it's just taking all facets of a production, from pre-production, even developing a project, pre-production, production, post-production, and then you can also go into like far out into distribution, but also take every aspect of all of these stages and break it down to all the actions that they require, and what is the way to measure the actual, let's say, the carbon footprint, which is like the most kind of mainstream, I guess, manner of measuring an impact. In terms of what tools we're using to do that specifically, because Greece does not have its own carbon calculator or way to measure its impact, we tend to resort to various different carbon calculators that exist. We also do work with environmental scientists who actually there is like an actual specific formula for creating the approximation of X carbon tons per unit of measurement, whether it's for energy or basically kilometers or whatever kind of resource we are trying to put into numbers and track. So that is one way to measure it. Otherwise, we use like various other countries' carbon calculators, and also like a pan-European one that has started to be put into practice that is called Eureka. And the other part of the question, the other question that you were asking was, sorry?
The tools, that was about how you measure the impact of it, but which other tools do you actually use to make film sets greener?
AI related, you mean?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Let's broaden that up, open it up.
Okay. Well, I would say that perhaps it's interesting to talk about the specific nature in which we specifically work with my colleagues in Greece, because again there is like no standardized way to do it or specific way to do it for Greek standards and the Greek industry. We have resorted to this more like analog manner of understanding what waste and resource reduction means in all facets of production. So we literally comb through everything that is used in production that can be tracked. And for instance, like a good example that is easy to talk about is single-use products. Trying to not bring anything in the cycle of the production of the film that will then be disregarded. So trying to integrate like a more circular model, let's say, of engaging with something that is a resource or that is an object. So we're trying to we're looking at more circular models of usage, and again, all the manners in which you can really try to we're not even looking, for instance, at, let's say, I feel like recycling has been a very popular quote-unquote tool for a very long time. And we're trying very hard to deconstruct that and to look at it as another means of a model of usage that is not circular. Because no matter, if you're going for the single-use anything product, it still has its own cycle and its own footprint, and the fact that it's made out of paper, or aluminum, it doesn't make it more ecological than if it's plastic, really. So it's these manners that are kind of a little more philosophical in their foundation, just because of the lack of resources in the specific scenario. But I do think it's interesting to point out that every country, again, because there is no standardized and one way to do things, every country kind of adopts different manners and different tools to really integrate, but at the end of the day, it is all the same. If you're looking outside of the audiovisual field, any event or function that is taking place still has its own footprint, and the more mainstream way to look at it is through the carbon footprint. And there's a lot of also, I think it's worth pointing out, question marks around using that as the way to measure the footprint of a production, or the negative perhaps impact of anything. But that is, I guess, what we can talk about.
That's a discussion. Also, I'm not sure that it fits in today's topic, but it's a big discussion as well. Now, back to Mr. Hadjivasiliou. How do you personally use AI?
Well, first of all, let me say this thing.
Also, you can comment on anything about the tools that our other speakers have mentioned.
Sure. I would like to make a comment later on about the disruption in job market that I think is going to be quite huge within the historic future, not within the next 2, 3, or 5 years, but within the next generations and the next decades. But please remind me your question.
How do you use AI?
Yes. What I wanted to say is this, that we now, for the last 3 years after OpenAI released ChatGPT, we think that this is AI. Well, this is of course AI, but this is not the only form of artificial intelligence. For example, artificial intelligence has already transformed deeply in a global manner our daily lives, and after only one form of artificial intelligence, Google. Search engine of Google is actually an AI, and it's one of the strongest one that we have. And everything has changed after its appearance 27 years ago. I mean, the way we gain information, knowledge, the way we do our jobs, the way we conduct our education, everything has changed in a historical manner by only one AI form. And let's also consider that the first, in my mind, in my interpretation, I put it like this: the first generation of massively used artificial intelligence are social media. Social media are indeed forms of artificial intelligence, and they have completely changed how we communicate our work, how we connect with other people. It has completely changed the way that political issues take place, and the manipulation that has already taken place with historical now scandals such as Cambridge Analytica that we might discuss a little bit further. So what I want to say is that all of us, since the last more than a decade or so, we daily use AI. AI is not only LLMs or is not only generative AI. Of course, at the same time, I definitely use LLMs. And mainly, I have a research interest because, let me clarify this. This kind of technology, this kind of AI, for those of us that do research on these issues, were expected to come, okay? But it was expected to appear, I don't know, in the middle of the 21st century or by the end of the 21st century, or maybe never. So when it actually was incarnated in a way 3 years ago, it was a great shock to all of us who actually are doing research and writing on this subject matter, because the actual aim of OpenAI is not just to create something that speaks like human beings, but its actual aim target is to create what is called an AGI, Artificial General Intelligence. Artificial General Intelligence will be a form of AI that will reach all intellectual capabilities of any human being. So this is like a historical milestone that will take place if it takes place. But the vast majority of researchers now, of the most leading thinkers in AI, philosophers, technologists of AI, etc., now expect that AGI will most probably arise by the year of the 2029. Actually, this is an official aim of the US administration right now. It has a huge investment program, the Stargate project, that its aim is to reach AGI. So what I want to say is that what is taking place right now, historically, is unprecedented. It is like science fiction becoming scientific and political reality. And this is something with deep ethical and existential, and of course, political consequences that we should really, really seriously start delving into this subject matter.
Another issue for another discussion, also the dangers that arise from these developments are vast. But back into the sustainability issue, because we're talking about dangers that can be humanity-ending in scale. But our aim is exactly the opposite here. We're trying to make our species a little bit more sustainable on this planet and make things a little better even when we're creating films. You mentioned, Bassam, before, a number, how carbon dioxide an average film production emits. How low can it go using all the tools that you mentioned? You said a number, let's keep that number in mind, like 500, you said 500 tons?
It should be zero.
Emma said it cannot be zero.
Yes,
right
but
the
there
aim
are,
is to make it
of
greener.
course. But
realistically, give us an example of a production that did everything perfectly. Batteries, everything.
It's hard, of course.
Hard.
But when you calculate, when you plan, when you reduce, the first important thing is to reduce our carbon footprint. So if it's 500, to make it 70. But with
70, that's a huge difference.
Of course,
it can happen.
It can be if you you're shooting local. For example, now the system of producing film is making it hard to be less than that, because if I want to produce film in Jordan, I co-produce with France and I co-produce with Germany, then I have to get 10 people from France and 10 people from Germany, or fly my director to Sweden to do the post-production there. So all of these moving people is carbon footprint. So if we produce locally and we hire locally, and we plan our food sustainably, and we use the sun as a source of light in major of the production, and we carpooled and we used electric cars, or we can reduce for sure, but it's very idealistic kind of way that is almost would never happen. But most of the like Netflix last year, they announced all their productions is in the US are carbon neutral. It's zero impact because they are offsetting. Mm-hmm. So they calculate, they reduce, they calculate, and then they compensate the carbon footprint.
for mostly large studios, correct?
Yes, but
But
in a smaller production, like for example, I work with Amman International Film Festival. We decided to be an environmental friendly festival. We calculate our carbon footprint from travel, from local transportation, and we offset that. We plant trees locally, and we try to reduce. At the beginning, we had ambitious to be net zero, but we couldn't because it will impact the budget, it will impact other stuff. So we decided we can do our best. Because there is no regulations and no incentive. So we're not using the green agenda to finance or to fundraise. Neither we are obliged to do it. So it's totally believers who are like the board of the festival are believers. They wanted to do that impact.
But also it's a benevolent marketing tool as well, because you say that we're carbon neutral and you attract the people that you want to attract.
It's not working in Jordan.
Yeah.
But yeah, it should be. It should be. Yeah, it should be. So yeah, offsetting would now at the moment our only solution to be carbon neutral is offsetting, which is also not idealistic and has so many question marks. Is it beneficial? Does it work or not? And all of that. But at least it is helping to rewild the nature to make sure that we have our green side of the countries that are alive and make to preserve it, but without, and it's not part of the mandatory carbon market. It's now from the non-mandatory. So to be most environmentally friendly, you need to offset. You cannot go zero without. Unless we don't do films. The other part, we stop doing films and we will have no impact.
Yeah, that's not a solution either.
Yeah.
So let me move this then to activism. Okay, who should we bother with this? Who should we talk to about this, about making greener films to create the incentives? Is it governments? Is it studios? Should studios give the incentives out for reasons of their own, economic or marketing reasons or whatever? Should we go to governments first? I'd like the view of both of you on that.
We had this experiment with different film commissions around the Middle East, in Jordan, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, and they are all in. They want to do the transformation. They want to do a greener policies. But at the same time, they're thinking, if we do these greener policies or green policies, would it push the international productions from coming to this country, or would it sell there? So we're always thinking with them on two sides. First, the policy side, where we would say, like, you have an incentive or a rebate system. Let's lock 2% of the 40% or the 30% for the best practices. Don't calculate. At the beginning, let's work on a best practices kind of thing, do due diligence on if these things happen, and unlock the 2% from the 40%, which is, it wouldn't push people away from your country. At the same time, it will give them an incentive to do better. Or put some sort of mandatory planning for the co-production funding. If you want to do co-production, you need to have, like in Germany now, we're applying. I produce a film that we have Germany on board, and part of the applications they would say, who's your green consultant, what is the strategy that you will do, and you need to have it even before you're getting the money. So it's important to have the government doing the incentives and the regulations at the same time. You cannot do just regulations without the incentive, or doing the incentives without the regulation, because they are complementing each other. So it will push people to do it because it's by law. At the same time, there is an incentive for people who are, would make them not or try to find other places to do it. So they are coming for the incentive. So it's like you need to balance both. So it's governments. If you have the regulations, the studios will buy in because it's part of the regulation. If you reduce their taxes or give them tax breaks for this, it will help. They will buy. It's always about the money, especially if it's a big studio. In the end, it's an industry. It's something for the financial report in the end. If they have that, they will do it.
Can something happen at the European Union level, or should we focus our activism on the Greek government? What would be more successful, you think?
I think that something that I had written down here that I wanted to mention was in terms of like thinking in terms of like policy and responsibility collectively, because I do look at the issue from a perspective of collective responsibility. That translates to policy inevitably, and the idea of like machine learning, which is something that I'm trying to, and I'm getting to understand a lot more about as well, in terms of how it can optimize and reduce the footprint of a production, for instance, and like AI-assisted planning, and all the ways in which it can be used to make better choices in advance and throughout a production. I think that the idea of like creating a national framework, a national green framework that productions can follow, and then perhaps, let's say, since the topic also today blends AI, what is like an AI, perhaps like assisted sustainability reporting for productions, for all funded productions maybe that receive like Greek government funding, that could be something that is, you know, I think possible and also substantial. I also know that having talked to a lot of people who have much more experience than I do in the field of also like funding and also just teaching, let's say, or like like mentoring. I think that the idea of like the metaphor of the carrot or the stick, as they say, the stick is something that people really turn away from, while like the carrot, the idea of like incentivizing, giving bonus points, not making something didactic and mandatory, especially when it comes from a government official perspective, but giving incentives to people to want to integrate for extra points, for extra money, for extra, you name it, I think is also a very good way to go about it. And for instance, like on a European level, correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe you know this, but I do believe that for the time being, like there is a requirement to have a sustainability strategy and a sustainability coordinator or manager on board, but there's no mandatory requirement to implement this, which I find to be deeply problematic, because there's a lot of productions that will reach out to people and say, like, can you help me make a sustainability plan? And then they don't follow through with it just because they needed to get the funding. So I think the idea of being very wise about how these incentives are put into place from a government perspective is really important too, in order to, if you know, a government cares to make like true change rather than like green, you know, there's also the danger of greenwashing, which a lot of people are, a lot of organizations can fall into that trap. I think to really do it is to like do it all the way, not just like to put out a call for it and then not carry through.
Who should we call to lobby? The market experts, or if you had one call to influence policy on that issue, who would that call be directed to?
It is the film commissions and
Film commissions individually.
It's hard to, because there is no like a global framework. Now there were some trials from different activists to work with the UN to have a global mandate called Entertainment, Climate, Culture, ECA. It's a very long association. So they've been trying, but at the same time, they had the same issue that is the current issue that we're facing with governments in terms of climate change. They're doing a very long-term pledges like, we will be carbon neutral by 2050, 2070. We're talking about today, and there is nothing about today. So you're pushing this issue to 20 years later or 30 years later. So it's hard to have a global kind of agreement. But there are really amazing case studies that they managed even without the governmental regulations or incentive to work. Like in the UK, they have this initiative or program now. It's called, by BAFTA, it's called Albert. What they managed to do, they created a calculator that you can calculate, and it's very advanced calculator, very complicated in some times. But at the same time, they managed to get some sort of a local consortium having the big TV stations on board. And now most of the TV stations wouldn't commission your work unless you calculate. They don't require you to reduce your carbon footprint, but they require you to calculate and know your impact. And then they will commission your program or series or so it's really good. And then they have the stamp, so it became some sort of a prestigious thing to have the Albert stamp that you're environmentally positive. So it created some sort of impact in the industry there. These stuff, but even without an incentive, so these stuff would help.
Can I add something to this? Also on the UK front, what I found to be really, really great, which is a new development, is a green pledge, which comes from actors. So it's like a demand that comes from the cast that the production in which they will participate will be sustainable, and they will adopt sustainability criteria, which I find to be great, because we're talking a lot about production and producers and directors often, or writers, but we don't talk about other departments that they can also, I feel like any kind of organization, group, association, affiliated with any facet of making a film or a commercial or a TV show can incentivize. And I think we're at the stage that to create space for this is a step, and then to find like what is readily available for that target group amplifies the impact that they're having.
Before I ask a final question about the creative aspect of using technology, and specifically AI, I would like your final comment on where we are now. Do you have the sense that there is a positive impetus? We're working towards a good result when it comes to making the industry greener. Is that 500 number dropping, do you think? Are we in a better space than we were 5 years ago or 10 years ago?
Yes, we are in a way better place. At least there is now awareness. People are taking initiatives personally, but not on the regulationary side. But it's on filmmakers' side. It's getting. When I arrived this week here, I met a Lebanese project that is participating in the post-production, and they came. I know them, and they told me we did our production as green as possible. We have this open source kind of guide. They checked it out. There are so many open source resources. They managed to do something that would make sense for their production, and they did their best. And they were saying, but we don't know our impact. So we were discussing, okay, let's measure your impact, and you can see how you did it and what you can do better next time. So I feel, yes, when we started back in 2014, there was like, whenever I talk about green production, I received this question: did you invented that? I was like, no, it's there. It's around the world, and we're too late actually doing this. So now people know it, and in every festival you would see one panel about green production, or a festival that is trying to do their own pledges to really shift and do a spotlight on climate change and how film industry can do better. So yeah, we're in a good place. I hope it will reach to a place that we have incentives, regulations, and to make it more and to be part of the industry, not an external thing that is trying to impose on the industry. It become like hiring a safety officer on set, hiring a green coordinator on set, to have it exactly integrated to the industry, and it's something by nature people wouldn't think it's a burden. It's part of the process.
Assuming that there is an industry, because now I would like to talk about the creative.
No, I mean film industry in general.
Assuming that there is a film industry, because you mentioned before a scenario of an examples of AI is creating actual artworks, if you can characterize them as artworks. There is a danger that part of the industry can effectively go away if these tools become as successful and as capable as the tech companies claim they will be. Then you could have major disruption in the market. And I would like you to walk us through that scenario, the dystopian scenario, what it could mean for this specific industry.
Well, You know, this is not the first time in history we have this discussion if technology is going to replace human beings in the works. At the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, there was all this kind of thing, and with the Luddites, and the people were afraid of technology, etc. Let me be clear. I perceive technology as something of fundamental importance for human beings. It's part of our own nature. I mean, nothing in the human civilization, isn't it that it is technological? The clothes that we are wearing right now are products of technology. The floor that we are stepping now, on is forms of technology. The building we are in is technology. Technology is what separates human civilization, human life from all the other species. So it has an ontological, profound importance for us, at least in my interpretation. But the thing right now with artificial intelligence is different because there are two kinds of categories in human labor, in human work. The ones we can do with our hands, with our bodies, that the Industrial Revolution actually replaced us because it's much better to use a car than run by yourself, for example, and the intellectual work. Now, in terms of intellectual work, the things are quite complicated now in the AI era. There are many researches from pretty significant institutions like Oxford University or like European Union that they do predict that within the next 20 years, 50% of the current jobs that we are doing will be replaced by AI agents. And now, of course, this has to do also with the art job market. Let me give you a particular example of something I read a couple of weeks ago. OpenAI has a lot of different AI apps, not just ChatGPT. For example, I suppose it is well-known Sora application. Sora application, for those of you who haven't heard of it, is an AI form that can create video. You just write what video you want, and Sora produces it within, okay, maybe not seconds, but maybe in a few minutes, let's say, or something like that. Now, OpenAI has announced that it's going to create a feature animation film over the coming 9 months. It's said that it's going to complete this feature film in 9 months and with $30 million. Now, in order for another big animation company such as Pixar or such as Disney, something like that, to complete such a movie, it usually needs around 4 to 5 years and around $200 million. So think something like 9 months for AI, 5 years for humans, 200 million for humans, 30 million for AI. So we can actually practically already see, not only theoretically, the disruption in the AI, in the job market, and also in the arts job market. So I think that it is a tangible reality that we need politically to prepare over it, but I don't think that most of the governments around the world actually understand the depth of the historical challenge we're going to face, not in a century or so, but within the next 20 years. I think that the job market at the end of the decade of 2013 is going to be deeply different than the one we have now.
Do you recognize this as a danger? This is, by the way, this scenario has triggered a lot of cynicism inside my head. First of all, 30 million doesn't sound that cheap. And what would the carbon footprint be?
But compared to 200 millions?
Well, there are animated films, I'm sure, that have been produced with far less than 200 or even 30 million. And
I'm sure the number that OpenAI announced is inflated, just not to scare off the industries, especially in the US. And these numbers, because I'm sure, and more than 50% will go for the executives that will they use their names, or the promptographers, which is they will hire writers to do it. It will go not for the cost of the actual AI. So I'm sure it's an American inflated number.
Do you recognize news like that as a threat, though?
For me, no. Because especially in the film industry, we evolved a lot since the silent era, and it found resistance when we had voice. Then when it become colored, and the industry keeps evolving, and it's always there are like at the beginning there would be like 8 people who are loading the camera and turning on the camera and using the camera. Now we need 2 or 3. And sometimes 1. So it's an ever evolving industry. So I don't see it as a danger, but it needs to be addressed early. So you can in film schools you need to teach promptography now, to teach people how to write the prompts, how to use AI, how to use it as a tool, similar to editing. We used to use knives and scissors, and now we are doing editing on our mobiles, not only on a computer. So it's an evolving industry, and we need to adapt, but we need to adapt fast, because AI is way faster than other advanced happened in the film industry. I think the danger is how you can push people to adapt faster. This is, I think, the thing that are scaring people in the industry, rather than would they survive or the industry would survive. And maybe in the end it will be one of the other genres. You would go to the cinema. I saw this comedy skit. Do you want to see an AI generated film or a human made film? The AI generated film is cheaper than the human made, and the ticket will, it might be a genre. The industry keeps evolving. In the end, it's a financial industry. I'm sure it will not die easily because of just AI is there. I think people are a little bit smarter than that. They will adapt it and use it as a tool.
Mm-hmm. There's also, I think, a term for this new genre, AI slop, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Emma, your take on that?
As Bassam is saying, I think that the industry always, adjusts to new. It's always been kind of going in parallel with technological evolutions and developments, and it adopts them. And I remember like when I was growing up, that I would go and wear the what's it called, like the glasses you wear, is it like 3D glasses, and you see the blue and the red, and they're saying like, oh, it's gonna replace like 2D like experiences, and then they're saying like, oh, animated films are gonna replace like live action films, and there's all these like trends that, to me, of course, like not to undermine the humongous impact of AI and technology and the fact that AI is having now and increasingly so, but I think as long as there is a wisdom to how it is a tool that can optimize perhaps the way in which films are being made, and it is not seen like as a replacement. I think once it finds its place, which I think tends to happen with a lot of like very trending branches of any kind of field, it ends up finding its place, and it that always comes with pros and cons. There are losses, but there are benefits, and then in the end, the direction of the discipline will find its way to integrate it, and I can't imagine. It feels like someone was telling me that, in every generation, everybody thinks that their generation is the one to witness like the worst and the best that humanity will ever go through. And I think that applies also to this very big like revolution that we're talking about. We can't know the future really, no matter like how we're speculating and how informed and educated we are about it. But we also can know that, like, looking back, nothing tends to be insurmountable. So that is what personally gives me hope.
By definition, one generation is going to be right. Let's hope it's not us. I forgot about you. Do you have any questions for our audience? Now it's your turn. Let's move around the mic.
Hi, and thank you so much for today. First, I want to kind of bring into the conversation something that was said in one of yesterday's talks by a representative of a coalition, I will call it, called The Alchemist. It's a Nordic country coalition with filmmakers, producers, digital creators, AI specialists, what else? There were like from scientists. So they have come together to preemptively think ahead and adapt and find ways to work with AI in production. And one of the most interesting things that was said was that you might have an amazing digital creator who doesn't know storytelling. And I want to bring this as an optimistic kind of addition to this conversation that, okay, AI might eventually learn how to do storytelling, but nobody does storytelling like human beings. And my question is the following. Because filmmaking has so many aspects, like logistically, it's like super complicated. And whether someone is a beginner or a veteran wanting to introduce greener practices, what would your advice be in terms of like, I have so many things to think about. I want to do something about making my production greener. Like, what would be the 20% that I could do to have the 80% of impact in my production practices?
Thank you for your question. I think it's all about, there are two parts. Like we have this green production workshop that we do. 80% of the workshop, we're talking about climate change. Because we discovered people that sometimes they know the term, they know the impact, but they don't know the details and why it's related to us. So we talk about what is climate change, what is the carbon cycle, how a human impacted, and just to make sure that they know this is a human-induced catastrophe that we're facing. And at the same time, we're trying not to push the doom narrative, because people will be down, they will be ineffective. So we're trying to do some sort of psychological mind tricks to make them positive, at least to feel that they can do something. Because in the end, one person on a greater scale is really hard to impact, but one person with one, we will be many, and there will be some impact, at least to vote with our money when we choose our politicians or when we buy this product. So we're trying to make sure that those people who are interested to be environmentally conscious in filmmaking, to understand what is the issue and what are the solutions in a global scale, on not only on film. So we do it like as a funnel. So we start with a bigger issue to go to the smaller issue, which is us in the film industry. And then we divide it in a very simple term. You have 3 buckets. You have 3 things that you need to focus on and plan: your energy, your transportation, and your material. Your material is a toe print. It's nice to replace your plastic water bottle with a reusable water bottle, but it's not the major impact. It's the social impact that you will do on set. But if you reduced your diesel generator in half, your carbon footprint is hugely reduced. If you're thrifting the outfits that you're getting for your actors on screen, you're stopping this manufacturing and all of impact of all new material. If you're reducing the carbon footprint from your food and the waste of the food that you will end up putting on landfills, you're reducing your carbon footprint. If they understand the major issue, it will be easily planned on set. So this is what we're trying to do always when we work with filmmakers.
And I think, and also just tying back to this idea that there is, as we've been saying over and over in many different ways today, just the idea that it definitely cannot be done perfectly ever, no matter what resources you have, even if you have like the ideal budget for it. But I think, as you were saying, the idea of like transport, resources, and energy, there's always a lot that you can do. And I think that the idea of the social impact that you can have by having one person spending time to really activate the community with whom they're making this movie has a tremendous and like bigger than one might imagine impact across many more productions.
Yes, one question over there. Thank you.
Yes, hello. My name is Stavroulia Geronimaki, and I'm working at the Hellenic Film Commission of ECOMED. And I would like to tell you that we would like to thank the festival for this panel, because it's a very crucial way to promote green filming. And from our part, we have organized training programs in cooperation with Torino Film Lab in the past in order to educate producers and directors about how they can use different protocols regarding sustainability management. From our part, we are a member of Green Film Network. And moreover, we have cooperated with Film Office of Central Macedonia and other film commissions in order to, and we have a Green Skills training program funded by Erasmus in order to educate and find sustainability managers, because sometimes, as you know, there are producers, they say, okay, we don't have money in order to implement green protocols. But sometimes there are not enough sustainability managers, educated ones, in order to implement green protocols, not only in Greece, but also in countries like in Italy and Mallorca, where we cooperate with. So the idea was to find sustainability managers of other sectors and educate them and regarding sustainability management in the film sector. This is a beginning for us. Of course, as you said, there are more things that we have to do regarding initiatives and other measures. Another thing is for our institution that they know that how important it is. So in the Hellenic Film Commission, in our department, we are responsible of green filming, and we are open to cooperate with other initiatives coming from Greece and other countries and other organizations to work together in that. And I would also like to share this project with Lina, because we are going to, he will tell us more about how we will organize it.
Hello, thank you very much for having such a conversation here. I'm Lina Milonaki from the Film Office Central Macedonia, based here, the regional film office in Thessaloniki, the region of Central Macedonia. And I would like to add to what Stavroula Geronomaki was saying before, and what you have stressed during your discussion on the strategic role of film commissions, not only to network professionals, but also to educate professionals and to be lobby groups for implementing green policies. And even though for Greece to have a green policy, Emma knows this very well, is almost a dream. I think that to begin with being film friendly, we have to go green friendly. It's a matter of survival to the era of the climate crisis that we are not at all aware of. So we try as film commissions to do work nationally, as Stavroula described, and regionally, with providing professionals with the right tools to get to know what a climate crisis is and how a production can be greener, that it is not a dream, it's a necessity, it's an obligation, I should say. And we're trying to do our best to educate the local professionals as good as we can. And it's only beginning, but we hope that it will.
We pick up the telephone call that you made to film commissions in order to do something green, as you said.
Oh, so it was you,
yes.
but it's you that's going to pick up the call.
Yeah.
You're in the room. Perfect.
We picked up the call.
Next question, yes.
Thank you for the very interesting talk, first of all. I would like to hear your opinion on virtual production, because I've been to VP studios and I've seen the big walls of screens, and I want to know how you think this compares to traditional production.
it's always when I think about virtual production, it's always really hard to decide because I'm a producer at the same time, green production consultant. As a producer and film activist, I would prefer that people would film on the ground, so more people would work, local people would be economically and socially, it will be more important. But in the green side of it, it can be intensive in energy, but at the same time, it can be controlled. So if you're filming in a studio that has solar power, batteries, or wind, or any clean energy coming, it can reach easily in terms of energy to net zero or even positive if you have enough. But at the same time, and it can be integrating AI generative videos because you're using the video wall and you can rebuild whatever environment you are filming in. Now they're using gaming engines, but it can also use AI. So it can be faster, useful, and more and cheaper. But there is this is always the ethical question: would we do it and endanger the industry and hire less people, or we do it the traditional way and need a little bit of planning? So I'm always torn in terms of virtual production, but it's something that is growing and especially in the series kind of thing or in the independent sides of film, because if it's available in that country, it will be sometime cheaper than like in Jordan. If you will go to the desert or you will film it in the studio, you need to calculate the impact, economical, social, and environmental, to determine if it's the right choice or not. But yeah, I'm still advocating to film, because when we film in nature, we're promoting environment. When we film on set, we're integrating local communities and using them to do work that would be economically, socially, and sometimes environmentally viable.
Yeah, and I would also say that I think if it's approached with the ecological intent behind, the choice that is being made, then that can filter how whether it makes sense to use it or not, because there is like the cutting of travel and transport, and also just like minimizing waste, and it's infinitely reusable as a set, but it also has, as Bassam is saying, the other implications which extend beyond just the principally green and ecological aspect of sustainability, which deals with the social aspect of it as well.
Perfect. Another question in the back.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for the talk. It's been very interesting on many themes that needs more time. I'm just wondering on one thing. I'm producer from Italy, and I'm less optimistic on what's going on, because it's always true that the market has been adapting to many revolution. I think that this revolution, it's also in at the same time with another revolution of political revolution and financing revolution. So I think that having all at the same time, it's not the best for the market, but let's keep positive. But one aspect that I wanted your feedback, your opinion, is how we really deal and reflect on making a greener set and having a smarter set, in terms that on one end we are also asking ourselves as a community to be better, to be more respectful and have more respect of the people, But at the same time, we are now also going in a direction in which we are trying to make greener sets with smarter, so with less paper. But at the same time, we are using more energy, and so the servers need more water, so we are spending more water. And on the same time, there are other reports that are saying that it's better to print the spreadsheet and the script and having less screen time, which is a problem, it's an addiction, and it's something that we should also think that maybe it's better not to have so many hours of screen every day for 18 hours a day for all our life, and this would change also our body, So I'm not really clear on how we reconcile these two elements in making the set greener, but also at the same time being a better human beings, I'm sorry if it's maybe too philosophical, but it's also has practical realities, because at the same time the government are asking us to be more green. There is all this market of certificates for the movies at the end, so we need to respect points. And so sometimes I'm really thinking, okay, I'm doing this for the points, but I'm not really thinking that it's greener and it's better overall. Thank you.
I think it's something that we've touched upon, but didn't necessarily address it very directly. Maybe just the idea of the paradox of the use of AI and technology in making a film or anything really more sustainable, because of the we have to ask the question of what is the actual footprint of AI and what is the actual carbon footprint of integrating AI tools. And again, I think that the confusion that you're expressing or the concern is something that I share very much. And I think this is something that to me proves how big the gap is between what is readily accessible in terms of AI tools that are very mainstream and integrated in our everyday life, and then the reality behind what the resources that they're using in order to be powered is. And just the idea, I guess, perhaps you know more about this than I do, or perhaps you do, but just the idea of what is an ethical way to use them. If we take out we've talked a lot about the job losses and the replacement approach of having AI replace creatives, replace artists, replace job positions. But what is the ethical way to use it more locally, to use it in a smaller, much more specific way that reduces its own impact, while also at the same time serving the ecological intent of the production, I guess. And maybe that's a question I'm asking you too.
Really? Thank you. Well, it's a two-way street once again. I mean, on the one hand, AI can create new solutions for fighting against climate change. For example, we're already creating technologies that can absorb carbon from the oceans or from the air, so it can have really tangible solutions for the present and moreover the future. But at the same time, AI is functioning based on data centers. And data centers use a lot of water, a lot of energy, and they are escalating year by year. For example, OpenAI had data centers 3 years ago that they were X-size, let's say. Now they are 5 times bigger. And let's think like hundreds of millions of people, companies, politicians, organizations use daily the LLMs. So in the end of 1 year, this actually is equally to one, let's say, sea of water every year that we need to consume just to have this kind of LLMs that we are using. And further, let's take into consideration that OpenAI was just one company out of, I don't know, 10 large companies in the LLM sector, is going to escalate it 10 times more. This is the project plan that it has right now within the coming 5 years. And this is why many companies, AI companies such as OpenAI, such as Google, such as Amazon, it's creating its own nuclear factories in order to be able to generate all the AI development that they are creating. So the truth is that from an ethical and practical perspective, so far AI is damaging, more of a damage for the climate change rather than beneficial towards it. This might change in the future. I mean, it's not deterministic how we're going to navigate through the next decades, but also it's a thing that we cannot have a global agreement on this issue. So we might use it in Europe with a more ethical, let's say, perspective. We might have other kind of regulations, but what about China, for example? What about, I don't know, Russia? What about United States? United States right now, the new Trump administration has deleted all the regulations that the previous government had in order to put some control in the development of AI so it can be safely developed. So far, the risks seem bigger than the benefits we get from a climate perspective in terms of the AI industry.
So, one final word from everyone, because we have 2 minutes left in our schedule, on our allotted time. Are you positive? Are you optimistic for the future of filmmaking, from what you've seen in this festival, on the field of green technology and new technologies being utilized to make film production greener? And how do you see the industry 5 years from now, within 30 seconds?
Producers are always optimistic, because with all financial issues, political issues, we manage to survive and find a way to do the films that we love to do. So yes, I am. In 5 years, I have no idea. I'm sure AI will have a big chunk, and it would be a major tool that we use in doing films. It doesn't matter if it's generative videos or it's just a tool to do our day-to-day production schedule, but it will be there, and so many tools will evolve and use these agents or these tools, but it will remain as a tool. It will not replace filmmakers, so we will keep seeing films from humans, hopefully.
I also remain a very deep optimist. I think there's always challenges that are ahead and currently, and there's so many things that are changing, but every day, you know, there's when things feel like in one facet of our like collective life, like politically very pessimistic, something changes and there's like a sliver of hope, as there is like lately for some. And then, you know, I do believe in the like resilience of the human spirit and species. So I believe that the good triumphs the bad in the end. So that's kind of what I would end it on.
It's the fact that we're talking about the future of the species in a discussion on green filmmaking, of the green filmmaking, is telling, I think, on when we are as a species. And one final word from you as well, George?
Well, I think that in 5 years from now, the world is going to be quite different because the historical escalation is, in a way, very rapid, how things change. I think that in 5 years, it's going to be a common place of understanding that AI is not only created by human beings, but by then we're going to have AI forms of AI, agents of AI, that they do create art. So this kind of question that we have right now, can AI create work, can AI create art, is it creative? In few years, in 5 years, it's going to seem a matter of obsolete question, let's say. This does not mean that human beings will not continue to create their own work. I mean, for example, think that we used to create clothes, and now we have factories, we have machines creating the clothes. They are not tailor-made that much. We still have people who make tailor-made clothes, but this is not the main issue. Maybe we have this kind of channels in front of us, not only for the 5 years, but even more after that period.
George, Emma, Bassam, thank you so much for a very interesting discussion. Thank you all for being here. This was the last of the Agora talks. Would you like to say something? We're good. Thank you. We'll see you on the following events of Agora.